The Film Basement is filmed in sunny West Hartford, Connecticut, in front of a live studio audience.
Welcome to the Filmmakers Basement, where I'm finally back on my seeing bad movies. I'm Brandon.
Hey, Andrew.
And we're going to be talking about some of the movies we saw this week, in addition to playing a little bit of a game show later on and talking about some of the stuff that's coming out in the following week. And back to referencing my intro, this week I ended up seeing something a little bit older, because unfortunately I couldn't see the movie I originally wanted to see. And I saw Resident Evil Raccoon City. Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. It follows the once booming home of pharmaceutical giant Umbrella. The company's exodus left the city a wasteland, a dying town with great evil brewing beneath the surface. When that evil is unleashed, a group of survivors must work together to uncover the truth behind Umbrella and make it through the night. And wow, that synopsis has given this movie a lot, because there is not a lot here. So this movie is kind of a mess, which is unfortunate because it looked kind of cool based on the trailers. And I think the best way to compare this mess is by comparing it to the 2005 Doom movie. I don't know if you saw that, but if you'd have, you know what I'm talking about. It seems like a good concept based off of a really cool video game series, but the movie comes out being very bland, generic, yet there's all this like kind of meaningless action happening around it all the time. Like, the concept seems really good. So we're essentially following this journalist going through a city owned by a corporation. Everything is going like horribly, essentially, and with limited resources, the journalist needs to get out of the city with the evidence of like this corporation's wrongdoings so she can expose them. And even, like, this could be a great concept even just by following her kind of video game style throughout the city. Like, we see her kind of doing all these actions and, like, uncovering the truth and escaping zombies and yada, 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 while letting all these characters around her kind of go off and do their own thing. So we're left with this tension, wondering, like, where did they go? What happened with them? Like, did they get killed by the zombies? Like, what is going on in this community? And instead we get kind of a very bland movie that doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't have anything to say, and honestly kind of looks like it was out of the 2000s. I looked up the budget for this movie because I was really curious how much it cost to make this thing, and it told me it was $25 million, and this movie looks like it was made on a budget of less than $1 million. Like, it looks very hokey for being a very high budget movie for a very well-known video game franchise. And it definitely oddly has a video game feel to it. Like, I can see like almost cutscenes in the movie, if that makes sense, where like in the game this is where the cutscene would play, and to show you, like, give you some backstory or have a monologue, but instead it's very oddly placed into a movie. Or like you can see like there are choice points where like a character is supposed to make a decision about going from one place to another, but it feels very weird in the context of a film itself. Additionally, it also seems like it's trying really hard to be like a scary yet funny film, if that makes sense. For instance, there's this scene midway through the movie where this truck driver, who we see earlier in the movie, gets turned into a zombie, and he drives his truck straight into the police station, like completely on fire, explodes. And then as this truck is exploding, we see inside the police station there's a cop sitting at the desk who's like completely zoned out, can't hear that a truck just exploded in front of him, whatever. The truck driver, who's a zombie, gets out of the truck, is on fire as he walks into the police station and collapses in front of the police officer. And you get this like kind of like punchline moment where it's like the movie wants you to laugh, but it's just like, it's just not funny. Like, there's nothing funny about the scene that's happening in front of you. It feels very confusing. Kind of like an attempt at edgy humor, but it's just a real failure overall. We also get another scene very similar to this where the police chief is trying to flee the city because he's like a corrupt whatever cop. I don't know what's going on there. But as he's trying to flee the city, he gets to this checkpoint, and the members of the Umbrella Corporation who control the city start shooting up everyone trying to leave the city as the song Every Way You Want It, Just the Way You Need It plays. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And again, it's another one of those scenes where this is supposed to be funny, but it's just like, why is this happening? Like, I'm not laughing. This just seems like, again, you're trying to be edgy and it's not really coming through. Additionally, we had like some of the horror really just did not land. Like, it's a movie that is trying to be like very scary, but ends up being more like kind of disturbing and like, again, why did you do this? This doesn't really track. Like in an uncomfortable way. For instance, like there's this whole intro scene where we see the main character who's from Raccoon City. She's in this orphanage with her brother. And you kind of see them being terrorized by beings that live inside here. But it's not really like scary. It's more like traumatizing watching these kids kind of go through their experiences. And if this were a better movie, maybe that would have been good, but it's very trashy. So it kind of comes off as very tasteless overall. Also, I don't really have any examples for this one, but the movie felt kind of forgetful. Like it forgot where characters were at times and what certain characters were doing and all that kind of stuff. So overall, it just feels like a very hokey reboot attempt. When I was talking about the budget earlier, that was mainly because this feels like a movie that came out of the 2000s off of a budget like $1 million. Like it almost feels Blumhouse-y, if that makes sense. Just the way it's shot and the very low budget effects they're using. It feels like they tried to shoot a very high concept movie on a budget of a high budget action horror movie on a budget of $1 million. And it's just, again, shot very poorly. The horror style doesn't really show through. It's very much relying on like jump scares to get a reaction out of you, the audience member, which usually isn't a sign of good horror if all it has to rely on is like good jump scares. And I could even forgive that if the action was any good, but it's really just not. It's just kind of like I've been saying, it just falls flat overall. Stories all over the place. I just gotta wonder who thought this was gonna be like a killer reboot to this franchise. So overall, I just wouldn't recommend seeing this. Like, it kind of feels like Prisoners of the Ghostland in that there's just nothing to see here. Like, it's just not a good movie. Don't watch it.
In terms of movies based off of video games, where would you rate this one?
I think I'd go back to the Doom movie that came out in 2005. It's very similar to that movie. It's very bland. No, the characters aren't very memorable or likable or I don't have anything good to say about any of them. The effects are very poor. Again, it feels like it came out of the 2000s. It's shot just bad, and it doesn't really feel like it's connected back to the initial premise, the video game Raccoon City. Oh my god, what is it? Resident Evil Raccoon City, which I haven't played, but I've looked into a little bit, and it's just bad. It's just very bad. I would not recommend this.
Because it seems like Hollywood just always seems to strike out in terms of movies that are based around video games.
Yeah, and I think I don't know why this movie got such a bad rap too, because this is like, there's a good concept in here. I think there's a really good movie that can be made from this, but at the end of the day, I don't know if it was made by committee or like what, but maybe they're just trying to stick too close to the video game premise itself, but it just feels bad.
I mean, they've done this one already. This was a reboot for this series because they've already done Resident Evil movies before.
And I've heard they're horrible.
Mila Jovovich. The first few were pretty good, but like they've teetered off in how good they are over the years. And the more that they put out, the worse it gets. But I had high hopes for maybe this was going to be kind of like the Mortal Kombat reboot that they did earlier this year, where it wasn't like terrible, but
the trailer looked good. Like it didn't look horrible, so I was really disappointed when I got a very generic bad movie. It's just kind of upsetting that a concept that seems good on paper, it just went nowhere in practice, which is unfortunate. But what are you gonna do? Well, Andrew, hopefully you got to see something better this week than I did.
Well, I already talked about Spider-Man so much last week that I just figured I would talk about something else this week, just mainly because, I already went through and did my Spider-Man review, and if you haven't gone to see it, go to see it. But I saw I went the same route as you, and I watched a reboot, or I guess you could call it a sequel, technically. But I went on HBO Max and watched The Matrix Resurrections. I had to think of the subtitle for that because all 3 of the sequels for the Matrix start with R, and I couldn't. I had to figure it out in my head. But yeah, so talk about a journey back to something that came out 20 plus years ago. Because have you seen it yet? Did you watch it on HBO yet?
I do want to just clarify, because you did say Matrix Resurrections. Do you mean the new Matrix movie or the third movie? I think you said Resurrections. Isn't that
what it's called?
I thought it was the third movie. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, because it's Matrix, Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Revolution, and Matrix Resurrections.
Yes. Okay.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about with the 3 R's, man. Like, you get confused. I understand where you're coming from.
That's very fair. I have not seen it.
A little bit. Jeez.
I have not seen it, but I have heard very conflicting things on it. So I'm very interested to see where you come in.
So I was very pleased with it, very just because of the fact that it took this original idea and these original movies, and instead of just kind of continuing a story, they took the movies and made them meta in its own universe. It was very cool and very like weirdly well done. There are scenes where Lawrence Fishburne doesn't come back as Morpheus, but there is a character named Morpheus in the movie, and there's a scene where it's a similar scene from the first movie where Morpheus is talking to Neo in the chairs and he offers him the pills and everything, and on a screen behind them is that scene from the first movie. It's like shot like they're watching the first Matrix movie while they're talking about the first Matrix movie in the 4th Matrix movie. It's very meta. It's very strange. The whole premise around it is that Neo, or Thomas Anderson, who he is been resurrected as, is a game developer. And he developed a game called Enter the Matrix, which was a game that came out back when the original Matrix came out for Xbox and PS2. So that was very weird to see, and I guess I think the Enter the Matrix game won an award from the Game Awards, which there was a Game Award for the game that he developed on like his shelf, like in his office. So he's a game designer. He developed this game called The Matrix, and he goes to see a therapist because he's thinking like that his reality is coexisting with his video game, and he's getting like confused and everything. And it's a very cool premise, and obviously they brought him back. They brought Trinity back. The machines like fixed them and basically healed them and put them back into pods and plugged them back into the Matrix. And the twist and everything is just like, is it real? Is it not real? Kind of thing. And also, just trying to figure out where the series is going to go from here, because they're doing 2 more. It's a trilogy that they're doing. They're doing a second trilogy for this. So it was interesting to see, like the new characters, the old characters, because they did bring back some old characters from the original trilogy, which was very cool. And, everything felt like it was back in that early 2000s era when you look at like set design. So like they're on the ship and it's all the same. It's the same chairs. It's the same spike that goes in the back of your head. It's the same like wall of computers that the operator sits at when they're in the Matrix. It was very cool. And they obviously had upgraded stuff because it was, I think he said 50 years since the third movie had passed, which was the time, like the time from, the original to this new one. So like the new captain of the ship that they're on is her grandfather was one of the captains from the original Matrix trilogy who Neo knew. And so that was kind of cool how they tied that in. And, yeah, I just thought it was really good. It was really well done. It was a really perfect way to reboot a series and to bring it back into, this kind of era. And like for fans that may have not seen the original Matrix movies. You know, you promote this movie and you're going to want to go watch the first three first, and people who haven't seen the first three want to go watch the first three first, and then you can go watch the fourth, this new one, and you're kind of caught up and you know what's going on. But I wouldn't watch this one without seeing the originals, because there is a lot of tie-ins to. It's not a reboot, it's a sequel. It's a sequel trilogy that they're doing. So you definitely want to watch the originals first. And I mean, I've probably said this more times on this show than any other like channel. This is like my catchphrase, I guess. We're not sponsored by HBO Max, but it's on HBO Max. All 4 movies are on HBO Max. We're not sponsored by HBO Max, but if they want to sponsor us, it's fine. We'll do that. But go watch them. They're really, you know, the original trilogy. You know, the first one's really good. The second one I really like. The third one, The fight scene though at the end of the third one was probably one of the best fight scenes of the movie, of the trilogy. And then this one was also really good. And you know, I was a little upset that they didn't bring back the guy who plays Smith. I can't remember his name.
I know who you're talking about though.
Yeah, Hugo Weaving. Yeah, so he wasn't back, but you know, he may come back later because obviously Agent Smith can be anyone. So
I am curious.
Good movie.
Like I said in the beginning, I'd heard very like weird conflicting reviews about this movie. There have been people who are saying it's a really good reboot and maybe even commentary on like film culture in the 2020s now, and I've also heard people saying it's completely horrible, makes no sense, they didn't know what was happening the entire time that was going on. I'm very curious if you can see where those people might be coming from, or if it's just like
kind of. I mean, I have watched the Matrix trilogy a number of times, so I know about the storyline and all that stuff, and then watching this one, I only watched it once, and I'm like, I understand what's going on. Like, this is not confusing at all. Like, the machines saved Neo and Trinity. They put them back in the pod, and now they're trying to escape again. Like, what's there to understand? Like, they're trying to. It's the whole concept of, do you want to stay in this augmented reality and be happy, or do you not want to have your life controlled by someone else, kind of aspect to it, if you want to look at it that way. I mean, I maybe can understand why people are like confused and just like it makes no sense, but from watching it once, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, they programmed a new reality into his brain, and this is what he's been going through for the last 50 years, and now he wants out again. Like, and he's waking up, or he's, you know, whatever, but his subconscious is like telling him that something's wrong, and that's kind of where everything kind of kicks off. But the opening scene for it was really strange though, because it was basically an HD remaster of the original opening scene from the first Matrix, and Trinity didn't, I think they used like I don't think they used the same like actress for Trinity, obviously, because she's a little older, so like she's aged a little bit, or maybe they de-aged her and it looked really weird, but it was strange. I was just like, this isn't the same scene, and then they were playing it out, and I'm like, it is the same scene. Like, wait, what's happening? I'm confused. But no, I thought it was really good, and you know, you should definitely watch it, especially if you've seen the originals. But watch the originals first.
As someone who has seen the originals and honestly has been a little disappointed with reboots in the last few years, movie I saw this week as part of that, it is kind of cool to see that there's like an actually solid reboot out there that just, you know, isn't entirely terrible.
You'll have to check it out and let me know what you think, because I very much enjoyed the direction that they went with the reboot. I haven't seen a lot of reboots that are like, wow, that was really good. But this one was really good. So,
okay, well, I'll be sure to check that out. In the meantime, let's jump into everyone's favorite game show, Pilot Wings. Andrew, you've played this game a bunch of times before, but for those who haven't, Pilot Wings is the game show where I pitch Andrew show pilots. Generally hokey show pilots that I've found through years of pilot seasons. Two of them are real. One of them is something I made up off the top of my head. Andrew has to guess which one is the fake one. And on that note, let's get this rolling. So, number 1. Based on the 1989 movie about a childish man who learns how to be an adult by taking care of his brother's kids in a very childish way. Number 2. Centers on a gutsy female forensic accountant who exposes fraud for a living and has finally found fulfillment both at work and in love until a case comes along that threatens to turn her world upside down. And number 3. Stacy was looking for any escape she could get when she inherited her grandfather's farm. What she didn't expect was the hard work, friends, and even love she'd find in that small farming town. So, Andrew, out of all 3 of those choices, which one do you think is the fake one?
Well, they're all terrible. I'll just see that right now. Like, none of them stand out to, to me that thinks that they would actually put that on TV. And if they did, then shame on them. Because, yeah, like...
You know what? I will let you know right off the bat. Because some weeks I do pick shows that were passed over.
Yeah.
Both of the shows I put here today not only were aired, but I think one of them had 2 seasons.
Wow. All right. So, based on a 1989 movie about a childish man who learns how to be an adult by taking care of his brother's kid in a very childish way. That sounds like it's a show. Because that one's the one that I was like, all right, like that one, probably. That one's the best of the worst. I don't remember a 1989 movie, and that's so specific too. So I don't know if you're throwing me off with that, but I also don't remember a movie that came out in 1989 that had a similar concept. The second one about a gutsy female forensic accountant who exposes fraud for a living and finally found fulfillment both at work and in love until a case comes along that threatens to turn her world upside down. That's so wordy for a synopsis. And also, like, I don't know, like, it definitely sounds very like mid 2000s, like woman empowerment type of show, but in an ironic way. So it doesn't sound real. And then Stacy was looking for any escape she could get when she inherited her grandfather's farm. What she didn't expect was the hard work, friends, or even love in small town farming. That is your typical generic, probably Lifetime, ABC Family, or whatever they call it now. I don't even know what that channel's called anymore. Freeform, isn't it? Freeform? Oh yeah,
it is Freeform. I forgot they changed that.
Definitely sounds like something like that. Which you always somehow include something that sounds like it's from Lifetime or
you would be amazed
from like
how many of those shows are out there. There's so many.
So I'm going to go with the second one about the forensic accountant because it just sounds.
So you're locking
awful.
that in then.
Yeah.
So, number 3 was the fake one. That is the plot to Stardew Valley.
Oh, I never played Stardew Valley. I didn't know that. Was their name Stacy in there too?
No, but I just figured throwing in a name like that was like, it's generic enough.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's essentially the plot to Stardew Valley. So,
okay.
The second one that you said was the fake one. That had 2 seasons. I forgot to put the name down for it, but somehow that got made into multiple shows. And the first one only got a single season. So let's look up that one actually, because I forgot to include the names this week because it's been way too long.
Oh, I got the second.
The first one is called Uncle Buck.
Oh, okay. The second one's called The Catch.
The Catch.
That was on ABC.
Huh. Sounds like an ABC show.
So yeah, you definitely threw me off with the Lifetime
That's my real secret. If I just make them all sound like garbage, you can't find my garbage rating.
Yeah.
Hidden in any of them. Oh,
this
man.
starred nobody that I know.
Yeah, it sounds about right. It doesn't sound good. Like, I would not watch this ever.
It aired for 2 seasons in 2016-17. Mm-hmm. And it had 20 total episodes.
I just
so
can't believe
realistically,
it that far.
1 season.
Yeah, basically. Very disappointing.
Yeah.
Which is, again, the theme of this game, is how disappointing these shows actually are.
Forensic accountant. That sounds so dumb.
That's the point, my man. That's how it is. Oh man, but yeah, that's been Pilot Wings this time around. It's good that we're back to this, so I can trick Andrew into choosing some really bad movies. But
it got positive reviews from critics.
Maybe there's something we're missing.
Metacritic gave it a 59 out of 100. Mixed or average
positive.
Reviews. Rotten Tomatoes reports a 72% approval rating. Why did it get canceled?
I don't know. Doesn't sound
crazy.
It
doesn't sound good at all.
Much, so, no, it really doesn't. It sounds horrible. But
and I've never heard of any of these people.
Moving on to something that's a bit better. Let's talk about some of the movies that are coming out in the coming week. And unfortunately, we're in that dead time of year where nothing really like big comes out. Generally, if I recall correctly, January and February are the dead months for the film industry. And generally, that's when like people put out movies that they don't think will either succeed or like they just don't have another time to put them out, because usually summer is reserved for like the big blockbuster movies that come out towards the end of the year are generally like the award grabby movies, because those are the movies that you'll remember seeing because they came out closer to when award ceremonies occur. But January and February at the start of a new year generally just like this is where we dump all the movies that like we had no other place for. But in that vein, we do have some good movies.
There's a ton of them that are out there.
I know. This is why this is unusual, because this isn't like.
And there's one that we talked about in one of those missing episodes that I did.
The Sesame Street one, right?
Yes.
That sounds awesome. That's what I wanted to talk about, because that one sounds really cool.
It doesn't come out until next week, though.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was talking about, because if I recall correctly, this comes out Friday, right? So then in the coming week, that will be...
It'll be next Friday.
Yeah.
The Friday after.
The Friday after?
Oh. Yeah, because it doesn't come out till the 14th.
Okay.
So when this comes out...
Okay.
This comes out on the 7th, and then Sesame Street won't come out till the 14th.
Yeah, so I thought we talked about movies in the coming week.
Yeah, so so this week we would talk about a movie that's coming out on Friday the 7th.
Okay.
But so that Sesame Street would be next week. But I don't think there's anything coming out this week.
There isn't. There's a lot of nothing. So yeah, definitely Sesame Street. I've heard Belle is also really good too. It's an animated movie that's coming out.
I have some on my list that I haven't gone to see yet from last year.
Yeah.
So I am interested in seeing the American Underdog, which is the story of Kurt Warner from the NFL quarterback. And then I was waiting for it to die down a little bit so I wasn't around a bunch of screaming children, but I would probably go see Sing 2 at some point.
That's fair. There was another animated movie that came out last year that was came out recently last year. I think it's like Rue or something like that, or something R.
I know.
Ron, is that it?
Is it the one with his robot friend?
Yeah, that robot friend one. I've heard surprisingly
that came out
good
a while
things
ago, didn't it?
I don't know if it did. I thought it came out in November, December. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but
Ron robot movie. Ron's Gone Wrong. That one
came out. Yeah, maybe that came out longer ago than I'm remembering.
That one came out October 24th.
Yeah, that's much longer than I thought it would.
But there was a movie that came out more recently that is animated, and I guess it's gotten a lot of good reviews, and it's that Encanto.
I've heard, the same thing.
The Disney Pixar movie. So it's all over my TikTok.
Yeah, I keep seeing that pop up. So that's definitely another popular one. There's also the new Scream movie out in the coming week, which is...
That's also on the 14th.
Very interesting that it's coming out in January. I'm wondering why they didn't have the faith to put this out during Halloween time.
They always do, like, a horror movie, like, right at the beginning of the year, I feel like.
True, but Scream's, like, a big property. So it's very interesting to me that, again, this did not come out Halloween time, which is when I would have expected a Scream movie to come out.
Because I remember, like, in 2008, I know Cloverfield came out in January.
Well, Cloverfield's also I feel like a different circumstance in that regard, because that was like a found footage film that was like very unique in its own premise, and also like something that you could probably didn't have a ton of faith going into it at the time. That I could see. Like, that's not really tied to anything. That's like just a found footage monster film, which was, again, very weird, and it makes sense it would come out like a different time. But Scream is definitely weird. That one's not coming out around then. But yeah. Besides that, I mean, it looks like there's actually not too many movies coming out, but there's some solid films that are popping up in the coming week.
I just went back to last January of 2021 because I was like, wasn't there a horror movie that came out?
There probably was. I don't know.
No, not a big one.
No,
not like a big one like Scream.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Is that's why it's so unusual, because that's not a normal thing that happens. Unless, again, like I said, the studio just doesn't have faith in the movie, which is weird.
Either that, or it might have got delayed.
That's also possible too.
Because, or they didn't want to compete with Halloween Kills. Because that did come out during Halloween weekend.
Maybe. I'm not sure. But regardless, I know we definitely have some good picks to see in the coming week.
I have not heard good things about it, though.
A Scream? That doesn't surprise me. If it's coming out now, it does not surprise me. But at least we have some choices to see some stuff. We'll see about future weeks how that holds up, because it looks, again, very slim in the coming weeks. But
I clicked on the wrong Scream. That one's from 1996.
But on that note, why don't we wrap this up for this week? Andrew, do you have anything you want to plug?
We didn't get to recording Sports and Nonsense last week. We kind of forgot. Well, one of us forgot. But we're gonna be recording tonight to put out for Sunday. It's the final week of the NFL season. We're getting ready. The playoff picture is slowly forming and coming into clear view. So we'll be doing updates about the NFL landscape this week.
Very cool. And unfortunately this week I don't have anything to plug, but I will say, I don't know, HBO Max. We support HBO Max. They're the best. Alrighty, yeah, I think that's all we got.
I mean, when they put the movies out for free to watch, like for the first 30 days, like
you might as well.
You might as well spend the $10 a month. Like,
it's already there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all we got for y'all this week. Thanks for listening to the Filmmakers Basement. I'm Brandon Gasparino.
And I'm Andrew.
And hope you guys have a good week.